What's going on, folks? Welcome in to another episode of Bleav in Commanders. We got a new host joining me. We got Mr. Scott Jackson, all the way from the 757. He's been covering the Commanders for over 10 years, y'all. He knows this team. He knows the DMV. And I'm glad to have him here on the Bleav Network. Scott, what's going on, man? Welcome, and I'm glad to have you. How you doing?
Very good, Anthony. Great to be here with you. I remember covering you as a player, and it's cool now to be talking to you here on this format.
And I can say, getting into the media side of things, now I get to talk to a lot of the people that covered me and wrote about me and wrote maybe good things, maybe some bad things. I don't know. I haven't went back and checked the receipts, but it's good to be able to sit here on the same side of the field and then really cheer this team on. I mean, they've been having a lot of success. I mean, you've been covering the team for 10 years, so you remember what it was. And then now where we are now and where this team is now, just so much success as of late. I mean, is there any other team you'd rather be covered in the NFL? Is there a hotter team in the league right now?
Well, obviously, no. I mean, I think clearly with Jayden Daniels, they're the it team right now in terms of where they were and to where they are now. And, I grew up in the area and saw the Super Bowl teams and all that and lived through the glory days with Joe Gibbs 1.0 and, worked in the media up in D.C. since 2000 on the radio network for the last decade with Fred Smoot. And, yeah, I mean, it's been crazy because it was really despondent for a long time. I mean, we were doing shows that felt more like therapy sessions than post-game shows. Like we're telling people, hey, don't give up. And, people would call up and quit and retire on the team. And I mean, it was wild, man. And then last year, it's just, everybody's just having the time of their lives. I mean, it just was such a flip. And to see the way the league is treating them, now compared to where they were before, just with the ownership change, has been such a breath of fresh air. That alone would have been fine. But then you get that, transitional, franchise quarterback that changes everything. And a real front office and a coach who just seems to really always be on message. So yeah, I mean, it's been a huge 180. I mean, it happened quickly.
It really has. I mean, at what point? I mean, obviously, ownership is the biggest difference. Sure. But other than ownership change, what do you think has been the biggest change, the biggest difference between this team from a couple years ago to now? Obviously,
quarterback. I mean, quarterback, right? I mean, I like Adam Peters a lot, and he'd be the first to say that too, right? I mean, I think Adam Peters is excellent and has done some really good work. But if you don't, have that second pick, get that guy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it'll be better, but I don't think it'll be better this quickly. It's the things that Jayden Daniels did last year, and I'm excited to see him this year. And you know this too, because you lived through a lot of this stuff through the NFL. When you have that guy, and then when you don't, it's just like the whole mood of the organization is completely different. Unfortunately, it looks like they have that guy. And, this year, look, like C.J. Stroud, he's going to have the target on his chest, but he did really all last year as the time went on,
Yeah, I think C.J. Stroud will bounce back, and everybody's talking about that sophomore slump for Jayden. It's easy to predict the sophomore slump because, frankly, everybody's preparing for you, right? They already know what you've done before. But I think that Jayden's going to be a special player. Got to say it, though. We are on the Bleav Network, so make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, and share it with your fellow Commanders fan. Share it with somebody in Madrid that you know, because the Commanders are going to be coming to visit later on this season. We're going to be talking about that. We got a little scheduled talk. But let's talk about the players that are going to be on this team. Going back to the draft, there was a lot of holes on this roster. I think coming in, I had the holes, a little bit of offensive line, edge position, was looking for some help at receiver and some depth at CB. They did a pretty good job in this draft. I think if I had to give one word to describe this draft class, and it's not a disrespectful term, but I think every pick was good value. It's a good value pick for where you were at. And you only came in with 5. So you got high quality products, but you had to do a lot with what you had. Connerly, Amos coming in at DB. And then I think those deep picks in the second round between Medrano, Jalen Lane, and even Krosky Merritt, they're going to make a lot of impact and get on the field early. Which one of those draft picks is somebody's going to stand out the most for you?
Well, I was a big Jalen Lane fan at Virginia Tech. Saw him in person a few times, and I just thought every time I saw him, he made plays, and he had that he timed really well when he got his chance at his pro day, which didn't surprise me. I mean, I think immediately, bare minimum, he's your punt returner, right? Bare minimum, he's your punt returner, and he's a impact punt returner for you right away. After that, he's in that mix of guys who's battling after, you get past McLaurin and Debo, for that, Noah Brown's probably in front of everybody for now. But Noah's had some problems staying on the field, full season. So I think he's in that mix somewhere too. But yeah, I think he can make a lot of plays where he can be great on jet sweeps. Again, I think bare minimum, he's a guy that's your punt returner, but he also, when you get him the ball, he can get open. I mean, he runs good routes. So I was excited about that. The Connerly thing was interesting because I remember reading about him throughout the draft process and seeing, of course, him play great against Abdul Carter in the big championship game, the Big Ten championship game. I thought, man, this guy's wonderful. But, I was thinking, like you, edge was the biggest need, right, of this team, and that's the route they would go. But they really stayed true to, like, the draft board. You hear that a lot, like, oh, we take the best player available. And, that's not always true, right? Like, outside of quarterback, if you don't need a quarterback, you're not taking a quarterback in the first round, right? But every other position, they say that. And rarely do you see teams follow through on that. But it was nice to see it. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I actually really do. I mean, I know they traded for Laramie Tunsil, but that right side is so important. You see with the Eagles over the years have always had excellent play at right tackle, right? And, let's see, the other part is the Tunsil, you don't know. I mean, 2 years, he might not be here. 3 years, he might not be here, right? I mean, and then that's some kind of insurance for you. But I like the idea of protecting my most valuable asset, which is my quarterback, and making that position better. Because, look, again, I know it's not sexy. It's not, it's not as flashy, but the teams that win, as you played to the business and seen it. What was the difference between the Eagles and the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl? The lines, the line of scrimmage is where that was won. So I was excited about that. Yep, I was excited about that. And I think, as Cliff Kingsbury's offense. And Cliff's offense, he likes athletic guys.
Yeah, it was one that was just, for me, it was slowing me down. Yeah, for me, it was slowing me down just because I don't know any of the offensive line like that, right? That's not a name that's at the top of the list. But you mentioned the way the division is playing out. Philly is going to get after the passer. They did that all last year in the Super Bowl, right? Then you talk about Micah Parsons down there and what he's doing in Dallas, and Odigizua. They just got him re-signed, big defensive tackle who's creating pressure in the middle. You're going to have some offensive linemen to protect. And the fact that you got the O-line, the O-lineman that had the most impact against the guy that's drafted in your division.
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think you had to put a little plus next to his name next to Connerly's name, not only because of the Josh Connerly challenge. Have you done that challenge? Hopping up off your knees yet?
Not very well. I'll say that. Not very well. Does it count if you have to brace your right hand to push yourself up? I don't think that counts.
Everything is fair. Yeah, everything is fair. Another creator put it out there. Another Commanders creator. Shout out to Deuce. I jumped in a little bit, literally and figuratively. But yeah, put yours out there, man. Put it out there.
Cracking, a lot of cracking noises. I don't know what that's all about. I don't feel like that's really good. But hey, whatever.
That is the knees and the hips going on, but just don't fall. There was one injury that I saw on social media, but it wasn't anything too serious, just a little ace bandage, and they'll be okay. But no, Connerly is somebody that when you come in here, he's got a little chip on his shoulder, knowing that he's ahead of Abdul Carter. And I think that that's something that's going to play into the rest of this season. I love the fact that you mentioned Tunsil, what he's going to do down the line. Do you bump him inside? But he's going to be a great mentor. And I love the fact that Cliff Kingsbury's play calling, Jayden Daniels' decision-making is going to help bring those penalties down that Tunsil had in Houston.
Yeah, I would hope so too. And again, I just like the idea of having athletic tackles that can get out in space, when you need them to, with a lot of the plays this team runs with some of that line of scrimmage passing is kind of exciting. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. And the Amos pick, I mean, again, I don't know, again, mock drafts, take them for a grain of salt. I understand that. But the guys that are plugged in that talk to the NFL people felt like this was a first-round player, and you get him in the second round. I understand the medical part of it, and of course, Dan Quinn hit on that last week at the rookie minicamp that, hey, they did their homework on his back and they're comfortable with the situation there. So that's exciting because, Samuel Strill he had a great rookie year, right? I mean, he really balled out. You hope that Lattimore can stay on the field for the full season. But in the NFL, as you know now, man, everybody's throwing out 3-4 wide. I mean, they're putting a lot of people in that pattern. You need a lot of guys to cover. And, if you've got 3 solid corners from the jump, that's exciting, especially in this division. Again, going back to, the Eagles, and then what the Cowboys now have at receiver. And of course, eventually the Giants are going to get somebody next to Bleav Neighbors that's going to be an impact player.
Yeah, you gotta be able to defend that secondary, and Amos is a sneaky player where you, like you said, should have been a first rounder, could have been a first rounder. Get him into two, like his size. I like him coming from the SEC, so he's played against some top talent. And hearing Lake Lewis speak about him, seeing him in person, the guy's got a little bit of size to him, so that's a beneficial thing in a physical NFC East. Loving to see what he's going to bring in. Those later round guys, we mentioned. At least I know who I like out of the later round picks. You mentioned Jalen Lane. I got my eyes on Kane Madrano. I really do. Linebacker, kind of lean, looks more like a safety, but he's always around the ball. When you cut on his highlights, he reminds me of Johnny Newton, now, obviously not by size and position, but the fact that he's everywhere on the field. He's running around, intercepting passes. He's making big hits, making tackles for loss. I like where is at, and I think he can make an impact on this team early. That's what I think these later round picks are meant to brought in for, to get on the field sooner and make this team better right now. So I like Kane Madrano. I mentioned him. He's going to probably be like a 4-team special teamer, spot play on defense. He could probably match up with some tight ends, free up Bobby Wagner a little bit. So interested to see how Joe Witt's going to roll that out. You already mentioned 16, 17 guys. And if you don't go and get that edge, where else are you going to generate some pressure? So Madrano's a guy, maybe that unleashes a little bit more Frankie Louvu. But then maybe you also got something from Javonte Jean-Baptiste as well.
Yeah, and, Jordan McGee's, hopefully going to be healthy this year, who they really liked last season. Looked like he was going to be ready for a big year, and then he got hurt. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's some interesting second-year players, too, from last year that really could take a step forward. That I think, we talk about this particular class coming up, but there's also some of these guys from last year, Owens in the secondary, too, who was a special team standout in stretches. So that's what's interesting to me as well, to see how all the pieces fit and what their vision is for it. Because, again, at this point, I think a lot of us are like, all right, what's going to happen? Who's going to get to the quarterback? Is it going to be? And I think you hit something that's interesting, the idea of Frankie Louvu being more of a pass rusher, and letting him just loose a lot more. I mean, we saw it when they did. He was very good at it, but maybe that's something they think they can do more of. And then the other part of it, like we think that they're going to have, this same, everything's going to be different this year. Like the opponents are different, quarterbacks and all that stuff. So, the struggles they had last year don't necessarily carry into this season, right? Hopefully they could figure that stuff out. They obviously went for some guys that they think can help solidify that defensive line to be better against the run. And that's really, one of the biggest things, clearly, especially in that division, that you've got to do with if you want to beat the Eagles. And you better get better.
Long.
Yeah,
all season long, you're getting tested on that running game. It starts early. We'll talk about the schedule in a following episode. But I looked at this draft. I mentioned value. Like I said, these players are meant to play now, in my opinion. The ones last year are a little bit more experimental, if you will. Right? Ben Sinnott, Luke McCaffrey, two guys that are kind of tweeners, newer to the position. How do they step up in this next season?
I think it's huge, right?
Guys?
That's huge, right? You nailed it. I mean, Sinnott especially, right? Because Zach Ertz isn't playing forever, right? And they didn't address the tight end position. So, I mean, Sinnott really, they really need to see it this year. They re-signed Bates, who was, more the blocker, but yet, had probably the biggest catch of that Lions game. It was kind of a dagger catch at that moment, late in the game. But, yeah, you're right, man. Those guys, and now McCaffrey, he's got some competition there with Lane in there. So he's going to have to, be ready to go this year. To get on the field. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, I look at that every year. We always get into the draft classes. I'm like, all right, let's see what the rookies do from last year. What's the next step for those guys?
Yeah. I'm going to say, I said we were going to wait till another episode. I want to talk about it now since the schedule is out.
Right.
All right. You've looked at it. Which game are you most excited for? Obviously, Madrid is out there, but which game did you circle saying, I got to get there?
Well, I mean, look, all of it is exciting, right, from the jump because, the Giants games, even though the Commanders won both of them, were not easy games, right? I mean, the one game that kicked 7 field goals to win in week 2, the game in up there at MetLife Stadium was close till the end, and the Commanders kind of grounded out at the end of the football game. So that's not easy, just because of the idea of Connerly and Abdul Carter potentially matching up immediately is kind of interesting to me. Look, the Christmas Day game, look, it's going to dictate how good the meal is or how good the day is for a lot of the fans. I mean, could you imagine what a great Christmas gift that would be to beat the Cowboys? But then on the flip side, what a devastating Christmas it would be to not win against the Cowboys. I mean, I don't want to go there yet, but just like the NFL, they in some ways are giving this gift to fans, but they're also crushing their emotions in some households, across the country.
Yeah.
If your team loses on Christmas, it really that one's got to sting more than others. This is going to be a weird feeling because I'm used to the Thanksgiving thing. I've had some great Thanksgivings and some awful Thanksgivings based on the outcome of the franchise's game. So the Christmas thing really sticks out, right? And then weird part of the schedule to me, Anthony, is the end of it. Like why they have to wait so long to play the Eagles, not once but twice in 3 weeks. I absolutely hate that. But hey,
diabolical.
What can you do?
Diabolical.
Yeah.
I in the beginning I said thanks schedule makers. I appreciate you giving this team. There's like, hey, you got to play Sunday 1:00 against the Giants. Quick Thursday game against Green Bay. So a couple of tight things there, but they give you a little bit of breaks here and there. But that finish, oh my gosh, that finish of the season. Oh my, man, you're gonna say, hey, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. Well, and the fact that you're gonna have 16 weeks of studying each other and putting things on tape before you go against each other, that's what's gonna make it even tougher.
Yeah, I kind of like the variance in games where you play somebody early and then later, because injuries availability is different as the season goes on for teams, and some teams get better as the year goes on. Some teams fall apart as the year goes on. So I always like it better that way. But for whatever reason, we've been kind of stuck in this pattern. I mean, remember 3 years ago, they played the Giants in back-to-back games with a bye week in the middle. It was so bizarre in one of Rivera's seasons. They played them on a tie. They had a tie and then the bye, and then they had that loss on the Sunday night football game, which pretty much knocked the Commanders out at that point.
It feels like a cricket game just going on for weeks, and you're just like, we still playing, y'all? Like, way back in my day, way back when I was with the Odessa Roughnecks, back in the Intense Football League, we played against the San Angelo Express, or whatever the team name was. We played them literally back-to-back weeks. And when we got done, we said, we'll see y'all next week. And it was a weird little home-and-home scenario.
Right.
So I don't like it. I know that because you really, when you play the game, you can't roll everything out, right? You can't be like, all right, we got everything, because you got another game that's coming up. So they're thinking, one, we haven't seen Philly all year. So there's a lot of tape to study. So are you rolling out something new? But then also, I got to see you in 2 weeks. But then also, hopefully 2 more weeks after that, I'm worried about the playoffs and maybe going on a run. So putting those games with that level of intensity, with that level of potential pressure on there, it's saying, hey, Washington, if you want to be the best, man, we're gonna put you out here to do it. You really got to show up for these games. This is a tough little finish.
As a former player, if you had a schedule that popped up and it said 5 primetime games and then 8 standalones, right, on top of the primetimes, would you be pumped up about that, or do you just kind of like, whatever, we play what doesn't matter?
You stoked. Yeah. You are stoked because in the beginning of the year, they bring you in and they say, hey, say your name, your first name, last name, and your college. And then you're like, oh, wow, okay. And then when I finally saw Anthony Armstrong, the West Texas A&M, come across the screen, I was pretty hyped. You know that you on Sunday Night Football, everybody's watching. Your mama's watching, your ex-girlfriend's watching. Everybody's watching you play the game. That's the biggest stage that's out here. Monday Night Football, 2 of them, 2 weeks in a row. You kidding me? Sign me up. And they bringing back special jerseys. I hope they bring back the burgundy over the gold pants. And you like, hey, if you get the jerseys right, we know everybody's watching. You get hyped for those games. Those are the moments. Look, I'm not mad at a 1 o'clock game. But everybody's watching and paying attention whenever it's those prime times in those afternoons. So give me those all day. You get to sleep in a little bit later. It throws your schedule off a little bit. But what I will say, you talk about all those primetime games, the first 4 weeks or 5 weeks is when they have the early games. After that, it's like 3:25 and later.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's all late games. Yeah. Or it's the very few 1 o'clock kickoffs after the first part of the season. I don't hate the Thursday nighter in week 2, because you know how it is. I mean, you're coming out of camp, your body probably feels pretty good, right? I mean, you're not like in the middle of the season when you got to do that short week is harder. So I think usually too, if you watch these Thursday night games, I was kind of charting them over the last few years. the ones early in the season are the pretty good ones. And, and then we get to a point where like, ooh, this is ugly football, right? As the season goes on, I think of that Commanders-Eagles game in November last year was a hideous game, really, for both teams. They didn't play great. It was not great football, but obviously Philly won the game. But even I don't think the Eagles were really happy with the way they played. But yeah, I kind of like getting that out of the way early. That one standalone Thursday, and obviously that Saturday to Thursday is going to be weird for the Christmas setup. The way that goes, but I don't know. Overall, though, it's a message, right? That the Commanders they never got treated like this.
Nope.
The prior regime. Now, when Gibbs came back, there was a lot of pomp and circumstance. The second time,
sure,
and they get quite a few primetime games. They usually, in that era, they've really struggled at a lot of these primetime spotlights for a long time. Rivera had some good ones, had some bad ones, but had some good ones too. And then, of course, last year, I mean, every time they were in the bright lights, they performed with Coach Quinn. So I think that's what they're excited about. They're excited about the home ones. There's several home primetime games too. But it's interesting to see it lay out. And you're like, wow, this is a heck of a schedule. Really, really is.
In October is always a scary month, pun intended. But man, really this October to November, look at this one. You're really Monday night against Chicago at Dallas. Then you go Monday night to Kansas City. Then you got Seattle coming into town. Then you got Detroit coming into town. They're pissed off. And then you head to Madrid. So that's a run right there. Like these games are set up to say, like, if y'all are gonna be good, you really got to show up each week. The thing for me is that I expect to see a team that's going to be more consistent. Whereas I was so impressed that they found many different ways to win last year. I don't think that they're going to have to go that route this time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think they can still win games late. I think that's going to still be their mantra, but I think that it'll be more in control rather than being like, which one of y'all are going to show up? Like, you get a random special teams play that came up and you're like, all right, cool. This puts you in field goal position. That gives you the momentum. It was a lot of team win. I think you're going to get a team win this year, but it's going to be tough. What is your biggest game? Maybe non-divisional, either not, obviously not division wise, the NFC East, but maybe other NFC opponent or AFC opponent that's coming out.
Look, I think the one smack dab in the middle, right, against the Chiefs on Monday Night Football is just really cool. Because, like, that's who look, Philadelphia's the Super Bowl champions. I get it. But the level of consistency Kansas City's had with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, like, that's what every team, when they draft that quarterback and thinks they have that guy, that's what they hope for. They want to have that type of Chiefs level of consistency. And so I think that's a great game right in the middle of the season, kind of hopefully a big opportunity to go in there and it would be a huge win at that point of the season. But that one is interesting because, first of all, you don't get to play the Chiefs that much. It's like very random when they get them. And to go to Arrowhead, it's been a long time outside of the preseason since they've been there. So I think that's really cool as well. But I kind of looked at that one like right in the middle. It's like, the Madrid thing's very interesting. That's fun. But man, to play the Chiefs, Jayden Daniels, Patrick Mahomes and all that is pretty awesome.
The fact that it's a Monday game, I don't know. I got some Chiefs friends that are down here, big Chiefs fans. And I was like, all right, now if my Commanders playing against your Chiefs, we may have to make a road trip. But that Monday makes it a little tough, man. Kids got school and all of that. But I don't know, just call it in. Just call it in. For me, I am happy to play Kansas City, but I want to see that Vegas game because I think that's going to set the tone for how you stop the run for the rest of the year. Daggum Pete Carroll and Ashton Jeanty, he might run the ball 35 times, and I hope he doesn't. But because if you don't, you still have the Falcons coming. The Chargers are going to run the ball. Seattle's going to run the ball. Detroit's going to run that rock. And then you get into the rest of the season. You got Philly twice. You get what I'm saying? So late year. I mean, I will say this: I would much rather face a tired, quote unquote, tired Saquon Barkley. Because I mean, he looked great all season last year, but I'm glad to be able to see him in week 16 and not week 2. But nonetheless, this is an exciting schedule. A lot of primetime games. That means you get to do your errands early. You don't have to stress. I love those days where it was like, man, I can go knock my stuff out and be done. I can watch the other little 1:00 games if I'd like to, but as long as I'm good for this afternoon or this evening, man, I'm straight. I'm excited for this thing. And Scott, I'm excited to have you joining me on this show here on Bleav in Commanders. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be having more episodes coming up throughout the off season. We'll drop some things out there, but make sure y'all tap in with Scott as well and what he's doing down there in the 757. Scott, you got anything for the folks? Let them know where they can follow you at.
Yeah, at Jackson Sports on the X, at Real Jackson Sports on the Instagram too. So either place you can find me there, and Monday through Friday, 3 to 7 on Priority Auto Sports Radio 94.1. We have an app, so wherever you are, you can hear us. Wherever you live, we'll be live from the 757. So anyway, and looking forward to the season. I mean, I'm going to start filling out the calendar right now. You know, the schedule, the weekends and all that stuff. Anthony, I got, trying to make sure I get my college basketball schedule lined up too eventually for my play-by-play. So these primetime games actually probably help me there. So I'm excited about that.
I love it. Man. I look forward to having you, and y'all stay tuned. As always, it's the original 1-3 Anthony Armstrong. I'm out. Take it easy.
See ya.